Richard Grace is on first.
Oh, hooray.
Yeah.
Is it Mark Grace? Did he play for the Cubs?
I don't know if he played for the Cubs. He might have.
Famous first baseman for
Richard,
Chicago
though.
in the
Mark's
80s.
real
He's an
name is
announcer
Richard.
now.
Let's see.
I'm afraid my true fandoms and hobbies are leaking out now. Live entertainment.
Who else is on here? Mr. Mike Wiesner.
Hey there, welcome, Mike.
Yeah. Mike has been recently published. We're going to talk about that tomorrow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the possibility of being published again soon. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I get a lot of requests for an Astronomy for Educators 2, or more astronomy for educators. And so
And even more astronomy for educators.
Sorry?
And then it'll be even more.
Even more astronomy for educators. Yeah, I suppose it could.
It could go on to much, much more.
Yeah, there's an awful lot to do.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a number of people who have asked for astronomy for educators with more math in it.
Oh, yeah?
As you may know, Scott, the first astronomy for educators has very little math in it. There are math supplements, but the idea originally was to offer a book for people who are being asked or required to teach astronomy and space science who don't have a background in it.
Right.
And I said, oh, well, here you go. And here's some suggestions. You can add the math as you go along. But quite a lot of people are saying they'd like something with more math, which I find exciting. Another group is saying, gee, we'd like something astronomy for educators for people who actually have telescopes and binoculars. Essentially a lab guide. So, the other good news, I don't know if I announced this last week or not, but the university has doubled the capacity of the Astronomy for Educators program at the University of Arkansas this fall.
That's great, man.
Yeah, so we're going to be running 2 sections instead of just 1. So that will be very exciting. And
do you feel like you're burning the candle at both ends, though, or?
You know, I taught in 5 different schools over my time. A lot of people don't move around that much. And every time I went in and I said, oh, well, you have plenty of room for a big physics and astronomy program. And they said, oh, no. We only have 15, 1,800, 2,000 students. We barely get 1 class of physics half full. And we don't even run it every year. And my standard boast was, I will see that not only is the class full the second year, but by the third year, I'm going to be teaching mostly astronomy and physics and very little else. And I was able to make good that boast every time by making it hands-on, interactive.
I love that.
Physics is not a math class. Physics is a verb. Astronomy, we go out and we do it in the dark.
Yeah.
We play with fun toys with our friends in the dark. Yay. Um,
The only thing that's missing, I guess, is maybe something that explodes.
we did have rocket-powered cars in my physics program.
Well, that'll work.
You've seen the 2-liter water bottle rockets, right? You've seen those?
Yes, I have.
Half full of water, and you pump them up with a bicycle pump and let them
Right.
go. And so I gave my students a challenge and said, turn the propulsion 90 degrees. You can have 3 2-liter bottles.
Fast radio bursts, or FRBs, are extraordinary events that generate as much energy in 1,000th of a second as the sun does in an entire year. Astronomers using NASA's Hubble Space Telescope have traced the locations of 5 brief, powerful radio blasts to the spiral arms of 5 distant galaxies. Because these radio pulses disappear in much less than the blink of an eye, researchers have had a hard time tracking down where they come from and what causes them. Locating the galaxies where these blasts originate is important in determining what astronomical events trigger such intense flashes of energy. The Hubble Space Telescope helped researchers narrow the list of possible FRB sources. Since their discovery, astronomers have uncovered up to 1,000 FRBs, but only about 15 are associated with particular galaxies. In this new Hubble study of FRBs, astronomers pinpointed where those bursts occurred within their specific galaxies. These images display a range of spiral arm structures, from tightly wound to more open, revealing how stars are distributed along these prominent features. These clues helped researchers rule out some of the possible stellar objects originally thought to cause these brilliant flares, including the explosive deaths of the youngest, most massive stars, which create gamma-ray bursts and some type of supernova. Another unlikely source is the merger of neutron stars, the crushed cores of stars that end their lives in supernova explosions. These mergers take billions of years to occur and are usually far from the spiral arms of older galaxies that no longer form stars. This study suggests that FRBs do not originate from the youngest, most massive stars or from older stars in a galaxy's central bulge. However, it is consistent with the leading model that FRBs originate from young magnetar outbursts. Magnetars are a type of neutron star with powerful magnetic fields. Called the strongest magnets in the universe, magnetars possess a magnetic field 10 trillion times more powerful than the magnets on your refrigerator door. These magnetic fields lead to flares and magnetic processes that can emit radio light. Although the Hubble results are exciting, researchers need more observations to better pinpoint the source of FRBs so they can develop a stronger understanding of these enigmatic flashes. This field of study may need a lot more research, but thanks to observations made with the Hubble Space Telescope, we're getting closer to understanding the mysteries of the universe.
That's a lovely introduction. That statistic, that wow fact. We'll get back to that in a second.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Scott Roberts here with Explore Scientific and the Explore Alliance, and we are here with Dr. Daniel Barth on our 11th episode on covering million, billion, and trillion. Okay,
Yes,
but how do you, as you say in your guide, I mean, we throw around these numbers all the time, and astronomers use much bigger. They have to cover much greater distances and all the rest of it. But, when you're just, regurgitating the numbers, I guess, okay, or the names of the numbers, how do you really wrap your head around so you can conceptualize
most people don't.
What that's all about? So
psychologists tell us that human beings have the ability to innately grasp numbers, visualize numbers up to about 10. Right?
10.
We know what
Okay.
10 of something looks like. And if I said, here's a box of 10 marbles, how big is 25? Most people are still not out of their depth. Okay, 2.5 times bigger. But when you talk about here's 10, how big is 100? If I said to you, Scott, here's a ping pong ball, one of our notorious ping pong ball planets. And so you can see this is a 40 millimeter ping pong ball. How big a box do you need to hold 100? How big a box to hold 1,000? And I would guess for the 100 box, many people could probably tag it within about 20%. But for the 1,000 box, we start to become lost.
Yeah.
How much bigger is 1,000? The other thing is that we work with a decimal system. The metric system is all based on powers of 10. So we have deci, centi, we have the unit, we have deca, kilo. And so you go on and you go, gee, all right, we've got all these things and they're all powers of 10. But when we start talking about million, billion, trillion, we're not talking about a power of 10 anymore. We're talking about powers of 1,000. And your intro was perfect. The magnetar has a magnetic field that's 10 trillion times bigger or more powerful than the magnetic field of the Earth. And so at that point, the shock absorbers on your brain kind of bottom out. And
right.
You've lost your ability. Now, not only that, but, and I can't speak for school systems around the world, but I suspect the problem is much of a muchness. American schools, and no offense to my math teacher friends, I offend my math teacher friends all the time, but we do a terrible job teaching very big and very small numbers. We do a terrible job. If I said, oh, here's a, if I said to you, okay, here's a, I'm bringing out a prop here, and I say, all right, here's a flash drive, and this is a 32 gigabyte flash drive, and this is a 1 terabyte hard drive. So how much bigger is one than the other? How many of these do you need to make one of those? And at this point, people don't know. You say, oh, well, I'm downloading a 5 megabyte video, and I have a 16 gigabyte flash drive. How many can I have before it fills up? And on these kind of questions, we kind of, like a ship in shallow waters, we grind ourselves to ground on the sandbar of ignorance. And we don't know.
The sandbar of ignorance.
Well, kind of, yes.
I love it.
You think of things that you don't know that are hidden from you, and yet they're a hazard to navigation, right? They cause you to foul up and do things badly. I'm going to try to repair this. And there are, every once in a while you see, oh, here's things people actually did. And they show you things like a stair that goes up to a window and all sorts of, have you seen those kind of things, right? Here's pictures of screwy things people actually did. Someone suggested to me my stairway in my home was too steep. And the guy says, I can fix that for you. And I said, well, how would you do that? He said, well, I would split your stairway in two so that instead of each stair going up 9 inches, the right side would go up in 4.5 increments on the left side, but they would be offset. Can you imagine a stairway split in half? And then I'm like, I would break my leg. My leg.
Like the Great Wall of China has all those uneven stairs all over the place. It's crazy.
Yes. Much.
And it was designed to break people's legs, you know,
pretty much.
Namely the enemy that might be racing after you.
So I declined. I said, thanks, I'll keep them the way they are. But we run into this issue all the time. And I saw this teaching chemistry and astronomy in particular, because chemistry and astronomy deal with the very great and the very small. And students, even if I said, okay, get your scientific calculator out, they had an awful time and they didn't understand the difference. And so I came up with this lesson, and it's been very popular, and million, billion, trillion. And I put it in terms that everyone is familiar with. And I put it in terms, Scott, of cash.
I like that.
And I would actually, I don't have one lying around, but the cash we're talking about $100 bills today. We're talking about $100 bills. And I thought, ooh, I'll just get a Sharpie marker and put a couple of extra zeros. And then I thought, no, that might not be the right or legal thing to do. So I declined to modify my dollar bill with a couple more zeros, but we're going to imagine today some money, stacks of cash. And so, as I often do, I have pictures to share with you. And so
goody.
I went looking for pictures, and I said, show me the money. And so they did. And this is, I don't know, this is some kind of crazy FBI
drug bust or something.
Drug bust cash, right?
Yeah.
And so you see they've got stacks of hundreds and stacks of 20s. And so you see the little bank bands that are on there, the little yellow bands?
Yeah.
Those are usually, I asked at my local bank, I'm like, how many bills are in one of those stacks? They're usually 100. So if you got $1 bills bundled up, you have a $100 stack. If you have $100 bills bundled up, so you have 100 $100 bills, you have a stack of $10,000. Okay, and you think, ooh, that would be a very hefty stack of cash to have a hold of. But most of us could imagine 10,000. Adults can easily imagine something that costs $10,000. Oh, that's a down payment on a car. Oh, I need to fix my roof. Oh, I need to put a new air conditioner in my house. You can easily think of things that would cost you $10,000. So $10,000 isn't that unreasonable quantity of money. So what, in fact, does $1 million look like? And it's interesting how often you see representations of this in popular culture, in movies. The payoff is $1 million, Bugsy. And he shows a little briefcase of cash, which in fact wouldn't hold $1 million in $100 bills.
They're always putting $1 million, though, in a briefcase.
Yeah, but it doesn't hold it. It turns out $1 million in, if you have $1 million in $100 bills, it takes a pretty good sized gym bag or a very large backpack to hold it all. It's a stack that's about 18 inches by 15 inches by 12 inches. It would not fit in a standard size gentleman's briefcase or business briefcase. It would not.
No.
A big gym bag, yes. A big backpack, yes.
Okay, yeah, sometimes you see that in movies too.
You do. You see the
gym bag.
Big, in British television, it's called the hold-all, right? That's the Brit slang for it.
Mm-hmm.
But the large duffel bag of cash, $1 million of cash in $100 bills, mind you, is 22 pounds of money. It's 10 kilograms of bills.
22 pounds.
10 kilos. So think of 5 2-liter bottles of seltzer or soda that weighs about 10 kilos. Right. And you're like, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of weight.
That's the reason why they say somebody with a lot of money is loaded.
Very good.
Right.
And, that's why it's laughable to think about. If you remember the movie Goldfinger, James Bond, one of the ones from the 60s. I'm going to rob Fort Knox. And the secret agent comments and he says, well, by my calculation, it weighs some, tens of thousands of tons, and you would need a fleet of trucks operating 24 hours a day, and it would take them a week to haul it all off. And that's when Goldfinger says, oh, yes, I'm not going to steal it. I'm just going to make it all radioactive. So it's now more rare, and mine is worth more. A true supervillain. So when we talk about $1 million, wow, $1 million, yeah, you would... You could carry it off. I'm not sure how far you could run with it. Many of us would have, if I said, here's 10 kilos in a backpack. How far can you run? I would have difficulty. But that's what we're talking about with $1 million. So if we go ahead and we talk about $1 million, and then we look at it and we say, okay, golly, so if that's $1 million, then what indeed does a billion look like? And so, yes, I went and I looked up how big is a dollar bill, how thick is a dollar bill, how thick is a stack of 100, and you work out the size for $1 million stack. But then you realize, oh, a billion is 1,000 million. We have millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. And then when we have 999 million, your odometer clicks over to a billion. And so 1,000 billions. And so once again, we're back to our stack O cash. Well, indeed, if you're talking about $1 billion in neatly stacked, nice, crisp $100 bills.
Right.
The stack is a cube of money. That's about 8 foot 4 inches on a side.
8'4".
Correct.
Wow.
So think of an average 6 foot person.
What would that weigh?
The stack is now about as high as you can reach, right?
Yeah.
Think of your average small lavatory, right? With just a toilet and a sink. A lot of them are not much bigger than 8 foot by 8 foot.
Okay.
Right? A little bit.
Yeah.
So figure your bath filled with cash,
right,
crammed full to the ceiling. It's a nutty amount of money. Instead of weighing 10 kilograms,
yeah,
it's 10 metric tons. It's 10 metric tons.
Wow.
So you would need a fleet of 11 F-150 1-ton, and most F-150s are not 1-ton trucks.
But you could afford a fleet, right?
Right.
I mean,
you would need 11 1-ton pickup trucks to haul it all away.
And a forklift.
10 metric tons. If you threw some lighter fluid on the corner and lit it on fire, it's solid wood pulp. It would burn for a month. It would, oh, I'm going to destroy your $1 billion. It would take a fairly good chunk of dynamite to actually thoroughly destroy your $1 billion. So here we have 10 metric tons of cash. So what's 10 metric tons? 10 metric tons is right on a 10,000 gallon swimming pool. So a circular swimming pool about 24 feet wide for our metric friends. Let's see, what do we get with 24 feet? That's about 7.25 meters across, a little bit more than 7 meters across, and a meter deep, right?
Right.
So 24-foot radius by 4 foot deep. We had a above ground pool in my backyard in California, exactly that size, 10,000 gallons. It weighed 10 metric tons, and it took 3 or 4 days to fill from the garden hose. So 10 metric tons is a terrific amount of mass.
Yes.
So now we jump into a trillion. Okay. Like as a billion is to a million, 1,000 times greater. so is a trillion to a billion. So you need $1,000 billion to make a trillion. We just had a 1 point something trillion stimulus package. We're talking about a 2 or 3 trillion dollar infrastructure bill going through that is proposed in Congress right now.
Okay.
We're talking the annual entire $1 trillion is roughly the annual entire spending budget of the United States government and all its departments. So
Or
$1 trillion.
the fleet of F-35s, and all
Yeah.
the maintenance, right?
Exactly. There you go. All the parts and people to fly them. Sure. So $1 trillion. Well, if you have this cube of money is $1 billion, 8 foot by 8 foot, and 8 foot is about it's about 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters, give or take. So if you're talking 1,000 cubes like this, an array of 20 by 50 is a nice way to make 1,000. So if you have 8 foot cubes, what's an array of 20 by 50 look like? It's a football stadium, whether you're talking European folks saying, yes, it's played with a round ball you don't touch, or if it's American saying you play with a pointy ball. And if it's my college team, it's the pointy ball that you play and you never win a game. But either way, you go into one of these stadiums and it is end zone to end zone, sideline to sideline, the entire playing surface filled up 8 foot deep with neatly stacked $100 bills. Not $1 bills, mind you, it's $100 bills.
Nice.
So when we're talking about our magnetar is 10 trillion times stronger magnetic field than the Earth. Okay. Here's your $1 bill. What does 10 trillion look like? It's a football stadium, end zone to end zone, 80 feet deep. And if I'm doing 80 feet, each of 30 centimeters, 200 and, is that right? 24 meters tall, right? So it's basically a building the size of a football stadium, complete with end zones, that is something silly like 20 stories high, and it's made completely of neatly stacked $100 bills. That's 10 trillion. And oh yes, how much is the Earth's magnetic? If that's the magnetic field of a magnetar, you take $100 bill off the corner of the stack, you make change for it, you put $99 back, and you take $1 away. There's Earth's magnetic field. And your 10 trillion, as we say, in units of 100, it's an outrageous amount of money. Now, just for fun, when I first wrote this activity, 2015, when I first wrote this activity up. And I said, oh, and by the way, friends, the United States national debt is $9 trillion. So that's 9 8-foot layers. And I said, picture an 8-foot layer equivalent, more or less to one floor of a building. Wouldn't be a very high ceiling, but so consider it to be an 8-story building, the size, a warehouse, 8 stories tall, the size of a football playing field area. And today, when I looked it up, the U.S. national debt is 28 trillion. There's something called, I have the website, the reference is in the handout today. I think it's usdebtclock.org, something like that, or debtclock.org.
Oh, death clock, right.
Yeah, and it's this odometer that's spinning, and it has all sorts of outrageous and stomach clenching facts about, here's the facts, Jack, and it just makes you wow. So the current U.S. national debt is about $85,000 per citizen. but it's about 250,000 per taxpayer. Because some are children and some don't work and some are whatever. But yeah, each taxpayer owes Uncle Sam a house in a modest neighborhood. So it's kind of nuts. It's kind of nuts. But when we talk about computers and we talk about, oh, I have a 5 megabyte download, I have a 32 gigabyte flash drive, I'm buying a 2 terabyte hard drive that's off my computer. That is exactly million, billion, trillion. The mega, giga, tera.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now we have peta.
Peta.
Which is quadrillion, I guess. 1,000 trillions. So 1,000 football stadiums, each filled 8 foot deep, end zone to end zone, sideline to sideline with neatly stacked $100 bills. Peta starts to boggle the imagination, and there are layers beyond peta.
Yep.
Of course.
A peta is 1,000 million, 10 to the 15th power.
Yeah, 1,000 trillion. Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
And it just gets boggling. When we talk about astronomy, the numbers kind of fall in quite naturally. So when we talk about 1,000 kilometers, this is a good scale for the size of a moon. Most moons are in the 1,000 kilometer scale. Our moon is 3,500 kilometers. A couple of the moons, Jupiter, are a little bigger. We talked about the nomenclature last week, but most moons that have names are in the hundreds up to 1,000 kilometers in size. 1,000,000 kilometers is a good size for a moon's orbit. What's 1,000,000 kilometers? That's a good yardstick for the orbit of a moon. Our moon orbits at about 250,000 miles, about 1/3 of 1,000,000 kilometers. If you look at the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, some of them are up to several million, but million is a good yardstick for the orbit of a moon. If you look at billion kilometers, 1,000,000,000 kilometers is a fair yardstick for a planetary orbit. And when we say a fair yardstick, we say, oh, if 1 billion is our yardstick, 1/10 of a billion is a reasonable measure. 1 AU, about 1/10 of a billion miles, or about 150 million kilometers. If you talk about the distance to Saturn, about 1 billion miles. The distance to Pluto, yes, it's a planet, 4 billion miles. And some of the Oort clouds, we talk about tens or hundreds of billions of miles away. But billion is a reasonable yardstick. Virtually every planetary orbit falls comprehensively in the billion scale, or that's our giga scale. Trillion kilometers is a good scale for the distance between stars that are in local groups or clusters. The nearest star to us, Proxima Centauri, is about 4 light years away, 25 trillion kilometers. And so trillion is a good measure, and that's our tera, right? Tera kilometers, good measure for the distance between stars in local groups. So when we talk about million, billion, trillion in astronomy, these units make sense, but we must also make sense of the units. And so our activity today is going to be making a big number model. And we're going to do this with paper and pencil and glue. And we're going to use the help of a small plastic figurine. This is a 2.5-inch plastic figurine. No, it is not a trademark registered Lego figurine, but it's of a similar size. It's an off-brand, I suppose you would say. But we're going to use this 2.5 inch tall. And how many millimeters is that? Goodness, this is about it's about a 4 centimeter figurine. And I'm sure it is precisely a 4 centimeter figurine, not 2.5 inch. But we're going to treat this as being 6 foot tall, 180 centimeters. So we're going to set the 4 centimeters is equal to 180 centimeters, or if you prefer, 2.5 inches gives us a 6 foot tall person. So if we're going to do that, what are we going to do for money? We're going to start out, Scott, with a regular 3x5 index card.
Okay.
Now, turns out if you check, a 3x5 index card has very nicely 10 ruled lines and then a place for a title up at the top. So you do some measuring and you realize, oh, all right, it's about 13.5 centimeters wide, or a little smaller, 120 some millimeters. So I did, let's take each ruled line as a division, and let's set the width of the bills as being 12 millimeters, 1.2 centimeters. And so I ruled this off and marked it out with a ruler, and that gave me 100 little bills, right? My currency.
Sure. Okay.
And I went and scribbled 10K on each square. And then I colored it over in green. And I know some of us in Europe have more colorful currency than us boring Americans. So I made the back purple. And
Okay.
I colored over this, I colored over my ballpoint ink with regular wax crayons. Works very nicely. And when we chop this up, we get 100 little currency bills, scale about for our Lego person. And the 100 currency bills each represents a stack of 100 $100 bills. So each little square from our index card mutilation is now $10,000. So at this point, if you're thinking about doing this with students, it makes a lovely, lovely little activity. And so the kids go ahead and they get their index card, and this isn't showing up very well, but they get their index card and they chop it up and they make 100 little pieces of currency. And then we go ahead and we take another piece of index card and we make basically a little bib tray for our Lego person. And we're putting on a bib as if you were going to eat lobster.
Yes.
You're going to the place where, oh, here's a bib because we're going to bring you lots of butter sauce.
Yeah.
And so here we go. And here we go, happy Lego person. We've got 100. So we've got a pile of currency, and don't shortchange. There we go. There's all 100 little bits of currency. And I'm going to try to pick this up, and I'm going to switch cameras again and show this with the better quality webcam. So here we go. Here's my Lego person, if I can get it in the center there. And you can see that she just has this great big Titanic pile of cash. And if you think about how big is $1 million, if you held it on like a cafeteria tray, it would pile way over. You would need a large baking sheet and it would still be overflowing. A pile of money. So this isn't unrealistic. This is pretty well to scale. And so you say, hey kids, each of those little cards is a stack of $100 bills. And if you want to take, here's a stack of 100 index cards and write 100 on each of them and say, yeah, okay. And the kids are like, wow, what can I buy with $100? Obviously, this money metaphor, students, if you're doing this with kids, they have to be old enough where they have some allowance of their own to spend, right? If they don't have any idea what a dollar is or what anything costs, what did my parents and your parents used to say? You don't know the value of a dollar. You've never had to work. A lot of us have heard that at home. And so, seriously, I was invited to do this activity by a library society one summer. And they said, oh, we're going to have a lot of children. I said, oh, what age? They said, oh, all ages. They said, oh, the average kid's probably going to be 12 or 13. The parents want something for them to do. And I thought, wow, this will be fun, because the idea of that much money is generally, wow, what if I were rich? Well, what does that look like? Turned out the kids were, average age was about 6.5, 7. Had no idea. They had fun cutting up the index cards and whatnot. They had no idea what this actually meant. So now we've got our person here holding $1 million, and I'm going to go ahead and switch. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make an 8-foot cube. So I've got this little thing. Oh, how do you cut out a cube? So I've got this, and I included a diagram. I sent you the upgraded handout today. It included this little diagram so people could make this. I'm shortcutting today. I didn't want to cut out 100 little index card pieces, and I didn't want to cut out all this, but I am going to go ahead and make the cube. So how do we make this? We've got to pre-crease everything. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-crease everything, and I'm folding all my creases, and you have to have everything folded nice and neat so it works. And here we go. So I'm folding all of these, and you'll notice not all of them have the little tabs. Some of these squares do, some of the squares do not. And I would love to lie to our audience and say, oh, of course, I was able to figure out in my head which squares needed tabs. But that would be a fib, Scott. This is, this is one of those three-dimensional puzzle type things. And I went ahead and I played with this for quite a while to get it right. So I've gone ahead and I've got this, and I'm folding all my little tabs. And I'm hoping that now folks can see what I've got here. And so at this juncture, I was going to try a glue stick, but I think I'm going to go with adhesive tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start folding sides and taping them together.
Okay.
And so here we go. I'm hoping some people in our audience have downloaded the thing in advance and are playing along at home. And so this one is coming out nice and neat. It comes out neater if you glue. It's true, it comes out neater if you glue things, but it's a little more fiddly. So I'm going to go ahead now and make sure I get my tabs on the inside. This is like closing a pizza box, right? After you take out the first slice and you've got all the little tabs and you got to close it tightly. So there we go. And putting it together. I think I did a nice job today. Golly, this is all coming out square and even. Yeah, it's interesting with my college students. One of the things I do, one of the lines that I preach all the time, is I tell my students, simple isn't easy. And I said, okay, you're going to make out of a piece of construction paper. You're going to make a cube that's 2.5 inches on a side. You want to start out with one piece that you just fold up and tape together. And go ahead, and I give them a bunch of construction paper, rulers, and markers. They have a terrible time. People don't generally think in 3 dimensions. So I've got my cube of money. Here's my stack of $1 million. And this is in quite good scale. Okay. Here's my person standing here next to an 8 foot tall, 8 foot wide, 8 foot deep, 10-ton cube of cash.
Yeah.
And with this being 2.5 inches on the side, the idea that, wow, okay, here's $1 billion. And at this point, people are like, oh my God, I could get a shopping bag and just start scooping away and I wouldn't make a dent in it. Like, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. You could shovel with a shovel and you would have a hard time eliminating a zero off of that pile, right? So, oh my gosh, it's a huge amount of money. Well, what's our $1 trillion? Well, this we can't even do on the tabletop. Because if we look at this, Scott, and we say, okay, gee, this is 2.5 inches. And if our array is 20 by 50, so 20 wide makes it 50 inches wide, which is a little more. It's about 4 foot 2 inch.
Mm-hmm.
And if we take 2.5 inches, and what's that times 50? Oh my gosh, that's 125 inches. That's 10 foot. That's 10 foot 4 inches. It's crazy. Or it's about 10 foot 5. So it's about 4 foot 2 by 10 foot 5.
Right.
And so you're not even going to do this on a classroom floor unless you push the desks out of the way.
Right.
What I usually do is I take little Bic pens for standards, right? I take a Bic pen and we say, okay, you hold yours here, and we measure out in the hallway, and then we tie string. Now, if you're going to do this with students, you could say, let's make 1,000 of these. If you have a class of 30 children and they're working on it, pretty regularly, I'm betting this is going to be a week's task to make 1,000. And then you could set them all out in a soccer field size thing. And you could say, oh, and here's my single Lego person. And this represents an 8 foot deep layer covering our soccer field. And here we've marked it off with, with the lines. American football, we put yard lines in. And here's our lines, and here's our goalposts or our net for soccer and whatever. And so you say, oh, and this is like a swimming pool. It's deeper than that person is tall. And it's all money.
And it's all money. That's right.
It's all money.
Mm-hmm.
And at that juncture, kids start looking at it and they go, wow. And then you start looking at, okay, how much does the Mars rover cost? About $2 billion, right? Isn't that right for the new?
The Mars 2020.
About $2.5 billion. It comes to mind as a figure.
Well, let's.
Okay, that's here's a Mars rover for you. It's $2 billion. Right.
They're saying life cycle cost for the Mars exploration launch rovers. I guess this is all of them launched since 2000. No, I guess it's the one that was launched in 2003. 1.16 billion.
A cube and a half of cash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a figure?
I mean,
yeah. So 2 cubes of cash is 1 Mars rover. There you go. How much is Jeff Zuckerberg or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates worth? They're worth about 1 cube of cash. They're worth about $1 billion.
I stand corrected. It is 2.2 billion.
Okay.
So that will be over the 10-year life of the Mars 2020
rover.
mission.
2 cubes of cash.
Yep.
So 2 cubes of cash.
That's all you need.
How much is a billionaire worth? 1 cube of cash. And how many of those are there? There's actually in the United States there's less than 600 billionaires. Less than 600 billionaires. And less than 600 billionaires means if we liquidated all of their assets, it wouldn't match the 1 trillion annual expenditure, roughly, of the United States government. That's pre-COVID, of course. COVID, all bets are off because everything is crazy. But you look at this and you go, wow, okay, now we have an idea. What's a million? What's a million is enough cash, to carry away in a duffel bag. $1 billion would fill your closet, even if unless you have a really big closet, it would fill your closet. And $1 trillion stacked up neatly is substantially larger than the average apartment building. It's outrageously big. It's 1,000 times bigger. And one of the things I put in, what's a million? What's a million? And you ask people, what's a million? Chemistry teachers know this all the time, because one thing that we do all the time is we do the mole concept. Remember that from chemistry, Scott? What's a mole?
Do not.
You do not. Okay.
I do not.
A mole, and I think I can scribble this out on, and I will do it in scientific notation. A mole is 6.2 times 10 to the 23rd. So you figure every 3, right? So you've got 3 and that's million. You've got 3 more and that's billion, that's 6. You've got 3 more. And so you go, oh, what's 23 divided by 3? And so that's 7. So million, billion, trillion, quadrillion. And then we have thousands of quadrillions. We have millions of quadrillions. And it's ridiculous. And what's a mole, by the way? A mole is easy. A mole of kilograms is the Earth. The Earth comes out to be pretty near exactly 1 mole of kilograms.
Wow.
So you get a 1 liter bottle of soda, 1 mole of soda bottles, okay? That is the Earth. And chemistry teachers try to do all sorts of gee whiz facts. And I've noticed this. How big would a mole of pennies be if you stacked them on end, and how far would they go? If you took mini marshmallows and you put a mole of them, how deep a layer would you get if you covered the North American continent? And it's like 150 meters deep. It's a ridiculously large number. And how small are atoms? Well, a mole of table salt is about 55 grams. So 55 grams, which a couple of tablespoons of table salt, that's a mole of sodium chloride atoms. And you're like, oh my gosh. So atoms are really small, but we try to talk, and a lot of times people try to impress, and I see this all the time. Oh, a magnetar is 10 trillion times more powerful magnetically than the Earth is. And they say that, and they just rely on the fact that you're using trillion with a T. Wow, really big. And yet people generally have no idea how big that really is. They don't have a visual model. And so with today's fun activity, Scott, everybody can have a good idea of what a million, right?
Yes.
And what a billion, and what a trillion looks like. And I've helpfully labeled here $1 billion. And it's 1,000.
Very nice.
So, yes, I know. $1 billion. And yes, there are, friends, a 1 followed by 9 zeros.
Yes.
And so that's your billion. And that's your fun activity for today. Next week, we're going to try we're going to go to some earth science, and we're going to investigate tides. because tides are a lot of fun. And one thing that I often get, and yes, I'll use my Sharpie marker on an inappropriate surface. People say, oh, well, the moon is up here. There's the moon. And here's the Earth down here, and that's fine. And so why do the tides bulge toward the moon as well as away from the moon? And how come the axis of the tides doesn't line up with the direction to the moon? So in 10 seconds with a Sharpie, I've given you a brief precis of next week's How Do You Know program.
It's like a cliffhanger.
It is. It is a cliffhanger.
Excellent.
So there we go.
Daniel, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope that everybody here got a good idea of how much money they need to yet to earn. So, you want to
catch up to the Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon people,
Jeff Bezos and company, right?
Remember, when you make your first million, you're only 0.1% on your way.
Oh yeah, you're still poor, right? I mean, it's all relative, right? Right. So there you go.
1/10,000th on your way.
That's right.
There you go.
But since we're connected to all the universe, you have the wealth of the entire universe somehow, so you can think of it that way.
There you go.
And talking about that, I do want to remind everybody tomorrow is our next global star party. We'll have a succession within a 24-hour period, starting at 4 p.m. We'll have 3 shows going on. 4 o'clock, we will have Open Go-To Community. Mike Wiesner will be our special guest with Jerry Hubble and quite probably Tyler Bowman as well. And then we come back to you at 8 p.m. for the Global Star Party. And so we've got great speakers as always for that. And I will then come back because it's the eve of the total lunar eclipse, which is going to be a supermoon, event, and the only total lunar eclipse in 2021. So, so that's something we're not going to want to miss if we can at all help it. So I've tried to line up people who will be on with us live to try to broadcast portions of the eclipse, and so we'll try to make that work. I will come back on at about 4:30 a.m. So when I say 8 p.m. and 4:30 a.m., I am talking about Central Time. So so Scott's going to be kind of punch drunk by the time that we get done with the broadcasting.
That's +5 GMT for those of you around the world.
That's right. So
speaking of, you said you're going to have guests on some of your programs. I know we've got a lot of regulars on the How Do You Know show. If any of you would be interested in being a live guest on Zoom with us, it would be wonderful to prep you and get you the topic and the handout in advance. And I'd love to have live guests on sometime. Scott, we've talked about that before. So I'm going to throw it out to our audience. Give me an email at astronomyforeducators@gmail.com. And
right here.
Tell me what kind of a show maybe you'd be interested in guest starring on. And I think it would be exciting to have someone live to ask questions and interact with us.
Yes.
I think it would be a lot of fun.
Okay. So, so Astronomy for Educators with the number 4, right? At gmail.com.
No, spelled out. Astronomy for Educators, FOR, at gmail.com.
At gmail.com. So we're going to put it right in there. It would be great, and maybe you can try to stump Dr. Daniel Barth. We'll see if that's at all possible. So
I will just let you know in advance if I don't have a real answer. I lie convincingly, and
you do.
41 years in the classroom. It's a skill I've honed over many years.
Right.
Just teasing, of course. If you stump me, I will.
You'll bow down. Yes.
I will salaam and acknowledge your superiority in science questioning. So there we are.
Well, great. Thanks for coming on Monday, our Monday program with Dr. Daniel Barth. And of course, the next episode will be the 12th episode. Remind us again what it's going to be
We're
about.
going to be on tides. And
Okay.
we're going to do one on tides in the Earth. And then the week after that, we're going to take a look at the moons of Mars.
Ooh.
Because the moons of Mars give us this lovely other idea about tides. And then we're going to keep going with the theme, and we're going to do rings of Saturn. And can you have a moon anywhere you want? We're going to answer that question in an upcoming episode. And you kind of be saying, gee, Doc, you're like a pinball machine. You're going all over the place. We'll connect the dots for you. It's going to be an exciting adventure over the next few weeks.
Awesome. Okay. Well, until tomorrow, guys, we'll see you. And until that time, keep looking up and think about participating in the next Global Star Party. We will have an after party. So, and I'll put the link up in our program tomorrow. Take care, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, everybody. This is Scott Roberts from Explore Scientific. And today I want to talk about the world-famous Galileo Telescope Kit. This is a kit that you assemble by yourself. You'll learn how optics work by assembling the objective lens and also the eyepiece. And there's two different eyepieces that are in this. It's a 25 power, 20 millimeter eyepiece, but it also comes with this very clever little device here that works both as a Barlow lens that will double the magnification of this eyepiece, making it 50 power, or it can be used also as a Galilean eyepiece, which gives 17 power to the telescope. This is what Galileo virtually saw through his own telescope. So you can have that same experience that Galileo had looking at the moon, looking at Saturn's rings, looking at Jupiter. It is a telescope that was designed for the International Year of Astronomy in 2009. And it's a fantastic kit, both for child and adult, to learn how a telescope works. And so if you get the telescope like this, you can either have it on a stand like this, you can hand hold it like a pirate's glass, or on the bottom here, we have a threaded hole here that you could put it on a camera tripod. Very versatile, very rugged, and a lot of fun, all from Explore Scientific.